What's that? Who there? Whoa.
I want to circle back to like put yourself back when you were deciding like, okay, this is the next business I want to build. Cause you know, serial entrepreneurs I love talking to so much because you probably have a million ideas. And like you mentioned before, one of the most important things is trying to do research up front and say, okay, does this make sense as a business to chase? Like, is this my next project? And so I'd love to hear from you just like how did, at the very beginning, I know you had this problem and you wanted to address it, but like from a business side, how did you address that this market was right to enter and there was disruptible pieces? And then how did you decide that like this was the next project you wanted to take on versus, you know, maybe find somebody, angel back them, et cetera?
Yeah, so I have something I call the idea list, and it's simply like it's a it's Google Sheets, right? And I just every time something annoys me, or I think it's harder than it should be, or I have some crazy idea, no matter what, even if I think it's the worst idea ever, but it still might have legs, I put it on that list. And there's hundreds of ideas in there, and I go through every 30 days, and I prioritize it, and I'll look through each idea, and I'll say this is terrible. I'll delete it, and then I'll say, wow, this is really good. I'll move it to the top, and ultimately, it's that part's like kind of instinctual, right? Like what I personally think is the best idea, and if I see an idea that it keeps right, it's always at the top. It's like, oh, nothing's going to ever beat this idea, which is essentially when I was going through my own experience. I wrote it down in my idea list, and it just was number one. No matter what I thought of or what any other ideas I put in, it was always number one. And I thought it would be really fascinating. I didn't know anything. I didn't do any research at this point, just because I thought I would enjoy it. And I thought I had, I'm a marketplace. It's my third marketplace. At the core, this is a lot of this business is a marketplace. You're matching supply of members, demand with your member demand, and then supply of clinicians, and you're matching it. I've done that 3 times now with my co-founder, one of my co-founders, and I don't know. It's just when it was time to take on the next business, I said, all right, I'm going to dive in. And that's where I went into research mode. And research mode for this was, I'd say, over 6 months. Just, there's online research, and then there's we traveled and met doctors, and we went to hospitals and talked to as many people as possible. And what we're trying to do is really understand, number one, can we make this a million times better than what the current options are? Number two is this an enormous market? Is this like an enormous opportunity? And number three is like there's a lot of great ideas, right? I was talking to somebody about like some crazy invention, but like I'll never be able to build it even if I tried. So like, was there something that we could really be successful at if we tackled it, and would we love it? Yeah, and I think when we went and I started doing the research, just some of the stats I gave you, right? 40 million Americans, that are problem drinkers. It's insane. 300 billion in economic costs. Cancer is 100 billion in economic costs. Just to put it into perspective. Yeah. So it just like I almost was like, I'm like, this can't be right. This can't be right. And you talk and uh, you look at kind of stats. It's like you have, I think it was like 30 billion a year, some crazy number spent on treatment, medical treatment, and only 1 out of 10 people are going that need like the treatment are getting it, right? So you have this huge market, 30 billion, 20 billion, whatever it is, but with 10% utilization. So yeah, and I think the stats of success were like it's hard to really get an exact number, but I've seen it as low as like single digits as somebody that goes to treatment like has success. And I just was like, wow, like I think we could bring this new approach to market in a really innovative way. And it worked for me. I think that was like the coolest part. I'm like, totally worked. And I thought like, let's do it. So yeah, that was it.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the other things that I feel like, at least when I'm brainstorming, I go through, and I know a lot of founders I've talked to is in that early stage, you try to like poke holes and try to figure out, okay, like where are the break points, right? And in the successful business cases, obviously those break points either didn't come to fruition or weren't big enough to deter someone from chasing. Did you have any of those at that stage where you were like, all right, this is probably going to be what breaks it if we can't solve this, or these are the caution areas, or were you just like the market was so big, you're like, whatever, let's just go after it?
No, I mean, I had them and I still have them, right? I think, but they don't bother me. Like, I just know exactly Like my first big thesis, which I just couldn't get my hands on the information, is of these 40 million, probably more now, with what's going on in the world, um, are because we can only treat low to moderate alcohol use disorder. So somebody like myself, I'm on the lower end, and it goes up. Is the large part of the market like me, or are they low to moderate? Because every one of those 40 million needs to go to medical detox and needs oversight in person. Like a digital only solution is not going to work, right? I just had conviction in that, and I believe that the thesis was right. Another thing was, I'm a test case of one, and I think that another big bet was, will this form of treatment actually work at scale, right? Will it be successful? And at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing. Like if the treatment doesn't work, no matter what we do, like this business is a failure, right? So can we improve health outcomes? Can we do it at a significantly better rate than how it's being done today? And these are kind of things that still keep me up at night. And how do we continue to improve and get better over time? And then some of the stuff I'll stay for later. About some of the new ideas we have coming as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's exciting. So another question that I love to ask founders is, in the first like 6 to 18 months, there's often these decisions that at the time, and you're a multi-time founder, so these probably don't phase you, but for first time and maybe second time founders, there's these decisions that seem massive, right? And then you make them, you're in a fork in the road, you make it, you move on. And in hindsight, you look back and it was probably just like a little pebble at the windshield. But I'm curious, even in this business for you, were there any like super critical decisions, could be product or people or approach or strategy, that you made in the first, year plus that, really determined the outcome for the business, and you feel like you either made them right or wrong? Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I think it is funny that you say that, because I remember when I was first getting started, these little decisions used to keep me up at night, and then over time I realized that I'm going to have like 5 challenging decisions a day. And if I worry about every single one of them, I'm never going to sleep, and even like in some cases, like the only wrong decision is no decision. I always say like the middle ground is like kind of where businesses go to die, right? So like you have to just make a decision, and you got to get everyone aligned and kind of go with it. But then there's the really high level, like strategic decisions, like the ones that can actually make or break your business. I think the biggest one was, at the time we were thinking about launching this business, I can't tell you how many people told us the D2C model in healthcare doesn't work. You have to go B2B. You have to go B2B. And just think, I'm just like, who's going to go to their employer and tell them, oh, I have a drinking problem? We did some research, and nobody's going to, right? Nobody. And I was just like, no matter, but I kept getting, you have to do the pair deals. You have to, and I think if this was an earlier business, I would have been more kind of, I would have listened maybe more to the advice I was getting. But I was so convinced that B2B was the wrong move, at least out of the gates. That was like a key thing, sticking to the D2C model and going direct to consumer, which I think was huge for us.
Yeah. Did you have any moments like that in your previous companies, either Venue Tap or Paint Zen, where you were like, because I just love getting into the mind of the founder to figure out, like in the moment, in the throes of it, when you were just feeling like super stressed, all right, we have to make this right.
Yeah.
Like, did you have those for your other companies as well?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about Paint Zen, because Paint Zen was the exact opposite, right? I had conviction around the D2C business, and everyone's like, no, B2B is the way to go. I'm like, no, D2C, because I was like, I had a prior business called MyClean, which founded, which was essentially very similar, but in the cleaning space, and it was a D2C company. I thought, oh, Paint Sense just, it's the same thing as MyClean, but for painting. But what I learned pretty quickly is consumers loved the Paints and D2C business. They loved what we offered. Made it super simple. Took something that could take up to 30 days. You could do it in 30 seconds. Painters loved it, but it's a one-time use case. Like, we're in and out, and then we never heard from the consumer again. So in that scenario, finally I'm like, all right, we have a great business. We have a great, adoption. People love the product, but the economics aren't wonderful. So let's take a look at the B2B side. And ultimately, B2B was really where this business, the paints and business, kind of took off, right? That was our core bread and butter where we could really differentiate and offer the most value. So, I have people telling me, oh, B2B in the monument, we'll go B2B. I'm like, oh, I'm going to make this mistake again. But I just conviction, like I just had so much conviction at that point around the D2C model. I didn't switch off. And I believe that was certainly the right decision. So there's always multiple things. I just run into this B2B versus, D2C predicament twice now. So I think that was fascinating.